pulled out in our old van, traveled all across this land.
Hi, my name's Mike Gallagher. I am 51 years old. I am a single father with 6 kids. 2 in college, 1 out of college that's a teacher, 1 in high school, 2 in high school actually, and 1 in middle school. I spent the last 3 decades as, I would call it, a media producer. I mean, I've been everything from a sports anchor, sports director, to a sports reporter, TV producer, multimedia. I've had photographs that have appeared in leading off sections of Sports Illustrated. My story's been featured by Dateline NBC. I've kind of had a real history in the media world. And my story goes beyond this one disease that I now know I have, known as polycystic kidney disease, because of other traumas. I actually, in 1988, starting out in my career, had an accident that broke my jaw in several places to the point where I needed over 40 reconstructive surgeries that rebuilt my jaw, and they put a gold weight in my eye that puts pressure on my eye that helps me read better and do some things. But I got through that after 40 surgeries in 20 years, and then in 2005 I was on a highway and a log truck rear-ended me and broke my back and fractured my skull. And I spent another 2 years recovering from that with multiple surgeries. And again, I started getting my life back and was dealing with one tragedy after another, and I just wasn't feeling right. So I went to my primary care physician, and I just assumed that some of the pain and discomfort I was having was from either the metal in my head or the cement in my spine that they used to reconstruct my bones. And I just automatically thought that that's what it is. Either some of the cement isn't taking, or I'm having a reaction to something that they've placed into my body. So they did a basic workup on me, blood work, urine analysis, a couple of different tests. Said, we're sure that's what it is. Go home. Once we get the test results, we'll call something into the pharmacy for you that should help your issues. Well, I wasn't home a few hours when the phone rang and the doctor called, and he said, I need you to come right back to my office, and it would be best if you brought a family member. Well, when he said that, I knew that, they don't tell you to bring someone else to help you hear what they're about to tell you. Well, as a single father of 6 and my kids off to school and my other kids all too young to actually have to deal with it, I just went myself to the doctor. And he came in with a lab coat on, and he had a folder full of paper. And he said, do you know you only have 1 kidney functioning? Did you lose a kidney with one of your accidents? Not that I'm aware of. He says, well, not only that, but you have a disease called polycystic kidney disease, and you are in kidney failure. And I stopped and thought for a second, okay, well, how do we unfailure it? He said, well, that's the thing, there is no cure. I need to send you right away to an out-of-town facility. And at that point, I went to UPMC of Pittsburgh for a further workup, further evaluation. And initially, when I was diagnosed, you learn a lot of different numbers, but the easiest way to explain it in layman terms is that I have 1 kidney that works at, right now, about 25 to 35%, give or take a few percentage points depending on the day that I'm having. When I was diagnosed, that 1 kidney was functioning at 70%, and my kidney failure was pretty rapid. So it looked like I was in really bad shape. And I got really sick. I spent over 100 days in and out of hospitals, in and out of tests. And basically now I was fighting a fight that wasn't an accident, wasn't something that a doctor's new metal implant or cement could take care of. Now it was something that might take my life. And I learned then that at some point I will need a kidney transplant. And probably the biggest problem with learning I had kidney disease and I had some other issues going on was that now was this onslaught of medication. over 22 meds a day. These medications, I didn't think of it at the time because initially I had health insurance, were about $2,800 a month. Well, after being sick so long, anybody who knows how our world works today, when you run out of what they call family leave days, then your days can be numbered with your employer, and it's just the way of the world. Nothing against the company I worked for at the time. But that caused me to lose my insurance, to lose everything, all because of this disease. I mean, we were at the point when we lost our house where the sheriffs come and they take the house from you. They really do that I had to actually talk my 12-year-old off the roof. But it was okay. We still stuck together as a family, but yet we were in real crisis after being diagnosed with polycystic kidney disease, and it was really taking its toll. I had the good fortune of working in a community as an on-air television personality, and in a community where, just like this, we story tell for the community. As a so-called journalist, I will tell you that many years ago I stopped calling myself a journalist, because I'm not a journalist. I'm not all about the facts. I'm a storyteller. And I kind of evolved that way in the media that I am in here in Erie, Pennsylvania. And so my story being known, and with my accidents getting so much media attention, my story has really been known. I mean, I don't walk down the street where somebody doesn't ask me if I've been run over by a Cleveland Brown lately, because that's who hit me and broke my jaw the first time. You know, I hear all the jokes. You know, I can go into a bar and restaurant and be told, "Hey, Gallagher, I'll buy you a drink. Let me get you a shot." But I saw you can't take a shot. I saw you get run over in the Browns game, so I better get you one. So I get all the jokes. So that's been my life. But the long and the short of it is that when this happened, the local newspaper did a front page article basically on how we lost everything and how we were searching for answers, searching for a potential kidney donor. And it was amazing. I mean, I got to a point where I finally said, I could try and hide the fact that I've lost everything, but it is what it is. And when you've been on television in a community like this for 3 decades, and you get to a point where you turn to social services, you go to the welfare office. And I will never forget the first day I walked into the welfare office. I was in line, and it's just like at the bakery. You take a number and wait for your number to be called. And I took my number, and there was a woman with 2 little kids who had the number before me. And the 2 kids, who were about 10, 11 years old, recognized me from television and wanted my autograph. They thought I was in the welfare office doing a TV story and that I might tell their story. They had no idea that I was waiting in line to find out if I could get food stamps, if I could get housing subsidy, whatever I could do. But when you have kids, humility goes out the window. And as hard as it is to take handouts, when it comes to keeping your kids warm, keeping a roof over their heads, feeding them, that ends up mattering most. And this community, even to this day, just has come to our aid time and time again. Well, this newspaper article appears, and a few different places reached out to us, Catholic Charities, a couple of different businesses in town that I had done work with over the years, or stories that I have told via my work at a TV station. And I get a phone call from Brenda Horvath. Okay, hi Brenda, how are you? And explains that she's an employee at Penn State Behrend, and starts telling me about what this group of hers does each and every year, how they pick somebody to help, something different, something above and beyond. So initially I didn't quite get it all. And as it began to unfold, I realized that Brenda Horvath, her staff at Penn State Behrend, and this group were really out to help us. Not just have a bake sale or sell a 50-50. They organized what I like to refer to not even as a benefit. It ended up being a celebration of my life. of my kid's life. It was a day-long event with 4 different area bands, with DJs, with acts performing, and the community turned out, and because of that, for the next 6 months, I did not have to pay for one medication. And I'm telling you, my medicines were $2,800 a month. When you have to decide, do you take the medicine that controls your blood pressure and controls your kidney function, or do you buy bread and milk? And now you have kids to think about. Well, what do? Do you buy that bread and milk for your kids and hope that not taking your medicine is not going to kill you? Because those are the decisions that you have to make. Well, for this roughest period in my life, financially, physically, emotionally, out of nowhere came Brenda Horvath and the team from Penn State Behrend. And they put together, I wasn't comfortable at first with having a fundraiser. You know, I'm 51 years old. At this point, I should be the one helping people, not asking for help. But they insisted and made it, again, a celebration of life, a celebration of my kids, and that aside from what it did financially to help us with our real problems of getting by every day, it was just a wonderful, wonderful day, and it introduced a whole new group of people into my life that now, thanks to that, are still in my life today. Here's what's most amazing, is it isn't like they read it in the paper, felt so bad for Mike Gallagher and his kids that, hey, let's do this. They have been doing this, and I don't even know how long, if it's been 5 years or 4 years. They pick a couple of projects a year or one every year and go to extreme measures to do great things for people. Again, it isn't just like they saw my face, read my story, and said, well, let's help this guy out and plan a picnic. Now, these are things that they calculate and do and help people that they don't even know. I never knew these people before this happened. So as bad as having kidney disease and ultimately needing a kidney transplant may be, all the good that comes into your life because of the goodness in people's hearts, like Brenda and her team, makes it maybe in some ways almost a gift. And about sharing the story is being in the media locally and the way that I am and my kids are, my life's been very public. I haven't hidden very much. The births of every one of my children have been news stories. My accidents have all been news stories. Somehow or another, you know, it's ironic that my goal in life was to be a storyteller, and now the story that I spend the most time telling is my own. But I've been very open with it, and that's been a good thing. A lot of people don't want to do that, and I understand that, and I can understand just the privacy of people, but I've been very open. I've been very open with my life, my kids' lives, and in a community like ours in Erie, Pennsylvania, that can really be a good thing because we have such good-hearted people. And now, since my story happened, it may seem hard to believe that my story could get worse, but it has, in a couple of different ways. After I now kind of had a grip on where I am with my disease, one of the first things I did the day I was diagnosed, and I don't even remember half of what the doctor told me, is I Googled kidney disease. And the Google search brought me to the National Kidney Foundation. And I made a phone call, and it directed me to the Pittsburgh branch of the National Kidney Foundation. And the young lady named Sherry, who picked up their phone, also suffers from kidney disease. And for the next hour and a half, she basically walked me through what I could expect out of my life and what I was in for. So I decided at that moment I would become a spokesperson for them, which I am. I am also a spokesperson for an organization called CORE. CORE is the group that goes out and encourages people to donate organs upon their passing, and actually is involved with the harvesting of organs. And I I speak at benefits for them. I do different things at hospitals for them because I'm very open with my story, and whatever I can do to help anybody with any problem, I do try to do. And it really kind of saddens me to think that I get so much attention over my story when I see some of the kids that either have my disease or need a heart transplant or have had a heart transplant, and they're telling me how bad they feel for me, and I'm like, don't feel bad for me. I have it wonderful. I wouldn't trade my life for anything. I have it so wonderful. But again, getting back to my life getting worse, once I had a handle on my situation and trying to deal with the limited disability, having lost the house, no longer having any credit to be able to buy anything. My son was in his senior year of high school, and they were still not sure how quickly my disease was progressing. And we started looking at whether or not my kids could possibly be a viable candidate to provide a kidney to me. And the closest match was my then 17-year-old son, who was a high school football player being recruited by colleges with a chance for college scholarships. And he was the starting quarterback going into his senior year. So now we're heading into that senior year, and we have all the tests, and I'm stable, and we're making some decisions and thinking where we're headed with life. And he says, Dad, I can quit football to give you a kidney. Keeping you alive means more than playing football or getting a scholarship. I don't need to go to college. Well, the doctor said we're not at that point. It's just good to know that we may have an option within the family if you really get sick fast. So 2 games into his senior season, he's the starting quarterback. He's having a great year. My daughter, who's 2 years younger than him, is a cheerleader, and she gets sick. Well, we just think flu initially or something. Well, as life would unfold over the next month and a half, we find out after being hospitalized for over 40 days, and we were transferred from an Erie hospital to a Pittsburgh Children's Hospital with her, who we are spokespeople for them now too, by the way. We find out that she is in stage 1 polycystic kidney disease. So now that's why they're pretty sure what my disease is polycystic, because it's very hereditary. So since one of my children has what I have and has kidney issues, none of my kids are allowed to donate their kidneys. And initially people thought, oh my gosh, that must scare the heck out of me, because now you can't have Sean's kidney if you need it. And actually it was the reverse. It was something that took the weight off of my shoulders. You know, maybe I don't get one, maybe I don't make it, but at least in my heart of hearts, I know that I wasn't asking my oldest son to give up every dream he ever had just to give me a few more years. But by the same token, it was bad that my daughter now has the disease. But the good thing in her situation is we're so on top of it in so early that all things considered, we're hoping for a great life expectancy, and hopefully she never needs transplants. But if she does, we're hoping it's going to be so far down the road that kidney transplants are going to be like having an appendix taken out in the years to come. And they're getting there. They're really getting there. And that's why I love telling my story, because with everybody coming on board for whatever the cause is. And I know this might seem crazy, and I talk about how crazy and tragic my life appears, and that it just seems to snowball. Well, I've told you throughout our conversation that I'm a single dad of 6 kids. After I broke my back in 2005, my now ex-wife left me with the kids. And I never blamed her, because if I could leave me, I'd leave me too. And I always felt that she left me with the kids because she knew I couldn't live without the kids, and that it was a good thing. Well, just a few months ago, she got sick. And by this point in the relationship of my kids and their mother, it's wonderful. And I have a great relationship with her. But we learned November of 2013 that she has what's called a glioblastoma multicell brain tumor. And the day of the diagnosis, they told us that she probably had 3 to 6 months to live. We're at 5.5 months. She's still alive. She does have some real issues with memory, and it's almost like 51st dates where you teach her life over and over again. But as all of this unfolded, one of the doctors actually met with my kids and said that, we call this a tumor of the soul. It sits on her hypothalamus. And so don't ever think that your mother left you. This is a tumor that did this. So now on top of everything that we deal with me, on top of dealing with everything we deal with financially and everything we're losing, and my daughter now having it, now we're in the end stage of brain tumor with a mother that we just reconnected with her 6 kids. So where I'll end up at this point, all that really matters is that somehow or another my kids come out of this with as few scars as possible. And it goes back to that benefit, and it goes back to this community. Because the most remarkable thing is the things that people tell me about how great my kids are. And that's because they've been raised by this community. They've been raised by their teachers. They've been raised by their coaches. They've been raised by the Brenda Horvaths of the world who don't even know them. And that's what our community is all about. And if my kids end up getting through all this and have decent lives, hopefully they're the ones holding the benefits with the help of Brenda and paying it back. And we're part of a pay it forward right now, but somewhere down the line, my kids and I need to find a way to start paying back. That's a whole nother chapter. And actually, I was in the middle of writing the book up until my wife got sick, and it kind of changed the whole focus of where I was at in writing my story, which I will get back to and am doing. And my son, who is majoring in film, and actually his goal is to produce his life story. He's already written a good part of it. But Pay It Forward is #AJO. If you had no more time left to me, just end my interview with #AJO, Google it. It will tell you everything you need to know about Pay It Forward. Well, Pay It Forward, Alyssa Josephine O'Neill, AJO, that's her initials. My son, who was going to give me his kidney, that's his best friend in the world. We were neighbors. When we lost our house to the sheriffs, it was her and my son standing on the roof refusing to come down. But they were best friends. My son goes off to college, is about to play in his first college football game. The day before his first game, she suffered from epilepsy. And she was a nursing student here at Penn State Behrend. And in the shower the morning before coming to class, she collapsed and had a seizure and ultimately passed away. So my son comes home, they bring him home from school, and because her mom wanted him there, and we were all there. So he comes home, and Alyssa's mom insists that he goes back and plays in his first game. So the first night of her viewing for her funeral is when he's playing in his first game, and he actually had the game's opening tackle. And as he's walking off the field, he stops in the middle of the field, he looks down at his arm, because on his wrist he has written AJO, her initials, and points up at the sky. And I talked to him after. I said, "Why'd you do that?" He said, "Well, I knew that just as I made that tackle at 7 o'clock on a Thursday night, that the doors of the funeral home were opening for the first viewing." So he plays in that game, has a good game, wins the game. We come back from Ohio. So now Friday night is the second night of the viewing of Alyssa's funeral. And there's a high school football game going on. And the entire student body of McDowell High School shows up at the game. And now their colors are blue and white. Well, Alyssa's favorite color is purple, which is the purple color for epilepsy. The entire student body of this football game shows up in purple, creates an AJO flag, and as the family and my son are heading to the funeral home viewing, they get a call that you need to go by the football stadium. You need to see what's happening. So the family, my son, and everybody from the funeral goes to the football game and walks into the stadium. The players stop playing, the band stops playing, cheerleaders stop cheering, the stadium goes silent as the family walks to the student section. And the stands erupt, starting chanting AJO, 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 Alyssa Josephine O'Neal. And a couple of the kids in home ec made an AJO flag, and they brought it down and handed it to Alyssa's family. And as they turned to leave the stadium, the cheerleaders who were getting set to create the tunnel for the team to run onto the field walks away and now creates a tunnel that the family walks through with the AJO flag to go to their daughter's funeral, with the stadium just in enormous applause. Well, my son does a video on this. The video goes viral. I'm talking 1 million hits on this video. And now this whole AJO thing is going crazy. And after we buried Alyssa, Mom and Dad go to Starbucks. And the day she died, they were supposed to have a pumpkin spice latte. For the first time, they had never had one, and they never got to do that. And that was the last text that she had sent Mom and Dad. Don't forget our pumpkin spice latte today at Starbucks. We have to do that, you promised. So they went and got the latte, and they purchased lattes, pumpkin spice lattes for the next 100 customers that walked in the door. And all they asked from the employees at Starbucks was to write the initials #AJO on the cup. So you don't have to pay for it, here you go, it's #AJO, bought it for you. Well, that went viral. Now Inside Edition, The Ellen Show, and everybody now becomes Danny Marino, the Hall of Fame quarterback, is tweeting about #AJO, and he goes on the NFL show on CBS and is wearing purple for Alyssa Josephine O'Neal. And now this thing is going viral, and it has a connection to our lives, and it has a connection to our story. And she was a nursing major right here at Penn State Behrend, and she became a nursing major because of the great care she was getting with her epilepsy. And she wanted to help people. She wanted to pay life forward. She's the ultimate want to pay it forward kid. And now we are where we are in our lives, and never a day goes by that somebody isn't thinking, AJO, pay it forward. And that's exactly what Brenda and this group at Penn State Behrend did for us before Alyssa even passed away. Paying it forward is nothing new. It's just now that as a community, because of this one young nursing student at Behrend, the world now is paying more attention to actually paying it forward. It went to Iceland, it went to China. I mean, we have photos of people buying Starbucks on the Great Wall of China.
Wow.
that are holding up their cups with #AJO on them. You never know what one person means to another. Brenda Horvath and the group that helped us, they have no idea. No idea. They did a remarkable thing for us, and they still check on us and are still worried about us. But they have no idea what it was like to actually be able to go in and get medicine, bread, and milk all in the same day. And you know, and the amazing thing is the day after the benefit, and this is almost irony, they came to the house, and Zach Brown Band, who my kid loves, and who Alyssa, the AJO story I just told you, that's her favorite band. They came to the house and said, you know, we know this is all for medicine and all for this, but do something with you and the kids. Go to this concert. So we went to this concert. And this ended up being the concert that Alyssa Josephine O'Neill, as Zach Brown was beginning to perform, had an epileptic seizure and never got to see him perform. And so one of the videos that my son did was a message to Zach Brown, how Alyssa's dream was to hear you sing the song Free. And Zach Brown saw the video and called us, came to Erie, Pennsylvania, and in front of a sold-out Erie Civic Center or Erie Insurance Arena, played the song Free, and the most remarkable, touching, feel-good moment to a family who lost their daughter. And now that I think about it, I didn't even put two and two together that the initial visit of ours to see Zach Brown the first time was because of the benefit that Brenda had for us. It's amazing how we're all connected in some way, some little bit. You know, I look at my life, I've covered Super Bowls, World Series, Olympics, I've interviewed 2 presidents, you know, and it's funny because I still speak at schools a lot, and I speak to journalism classes. And I'll tell you this is more for you, but the one question I always get is, what's the best interview or story or photo that you've ever taken with all the celebrity stuff and all the Super Bowls and everything? And I always tell the kids, the best story I ever told was the one that nobody saw. And the reason is because in 1988, I had just covered a local figure skater in the Olympics. And she didn't medal, but she did okay. And she came home and she was skating at our local civic center with Brian Boitano, the gold medalist, won the Olympic gold. And when that show was announced, I got a call at my TV station by a viewer who said, "Mike, we know you know Brian Boitano and Katarina Witt. Can you get our daughter to meet him?" I said, "Well, if I did that for you, I'd have to do that for all of our viewers. And I really can't start trying to help viewers meet the celebrities they want to meet. It's just too difficult." And the mother said, "Well, our daughter has leukemia, and it's her dream to meet him." So I said, "Well, let me see what I can do." And I called Karen Cadavy, and we got a hold of Brian Boitano. I said, "Absolutely, we'll bring her to the show. We'll bring her to the skate around before the show, where we warm up so we can spend time with her and have dinner with her, and then she can be our guest for the show." Well, the night of the show comes, and I called the family, and I said, "Well, meet me at the TV station, and we'll head down to the Civic Center, and we'll meet Brian Boitano." I said, "Mike, we're sorry, but she's gotten sick, and we've had to take her to the hospital, and she can't go." So I got this idea that I would go down where Michelle was supposed to see Brian Boitano and meet him. And I went up to Brian Boitano and I said, "Can I tape your show? Can I get a message for you on my video camera so I can show it to her and she can see what she didn't get to come and witness?" And he said, "Well, Mike, where is she?" I said, "Well, she's at the hospital." He said, "I know she's in the hospital, but how far is it?" I said, "Well, it's about 20 blocks. He said, "Well, take me to her." So I take him to the hospital to see her. And as we get out of the car, I'm thinking, now this is a story. Brian Boitano wins the gold medal in the Olympics in Calgary, and here he is in Erie, and he's going into a hospital to see a 16-year-old local resident who has leukemia. And as I get my video camera out of the car, he says, "Oh no, I don't want people thinking I'm just coming to visit her for the publicity." And then I said to him, I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, can I tape your visit with her and your show for her, and I don't have to do it on the news?" He said, "That you can do." So I tape his visit with her, I tape his performance, I go back the next day and bring her the tape. I don't think anything else about it. And about 6 months later, I get a small card in the mail. And I've gotten a lot of viewer mail over 30 years of sportscasting and TV producing. And there's not a whole lot of it that I still have. But this one, I have it permanently implanted in my mind because I got a card from her grandfather. And the grandfather wrote, "Dear Mr. Gallagher, we thought you should know that Michelle's battle with cancer has ended and she has passed away. We buried her just a week ago. We also thought you should know that she died with 2 dying wishes. One was to be buried with the pillow that Brian Boitano signed for her in the hospital. The other was to be buried with the Mike Gallagher video that you made her. So the video no longer exists because we buried it with her when we put her to rest. Thank you so much for making her wish come true. That moment to me is the most incredible moment of my career and always will be. I had my own video business and photo business on the side. It's called the Mike Gallagher video because of that card. Because the one story that was just heart, emotion, the story that could have won me an Emmy is where it needed to be. The one who needed to see it saw it, Michelle, and she ultimately asked to be buried with it. And that is my career in a nutshell. If my career ends up being summarized by one story, that will be the one. My story has a lot of different sidebars to it, and there are a lot of different angles to where my life has been, where it's going, where my family will end up, what will ultimately happen. One of the stories that will now be forever a part of me is the way this community, Brenda Horvath and her team, came to our aid, were there for us. And probably the saddest part of my story is that it took me learning that I might be dying to find out about the great things that her and her group are doing. I should have been part of their mission for helping all these other causes all along, and I wasn't. And they continue to do great things, and people continue to do great things. And that's what our world's all about, is each other. You know, at the end of the day, all we truly have is one another. And I've been shown that. It took a kick in the kidney, a broken jaw, broken back to open my eyes. But now my eyes are there, and people think I'm crazy when I say that I wouldn't trade my life for anyone, because I have the greatest life in the world, and the reason I do is because of the people that have been brought into my life, who have made my life so wonderful.
So we live out